Time to pull up a chair. We've got another great story for you today in the rLounge. Something to ponder. Not everyone sitting at your dinner table has your best intention at heart. Some of them just want the combination to your safe. Today in the rLounge, karma's got a sense of humor, and it looks like a money-hungry ex. Am I the a-hole for coming to dinner with my ex and his new girlfriend uninvited? This situation is long and messy, so I'll try to include the relevant info only. I, female 32, broke up with my longtime partner, male 33, right before COVID hit. We stayed in the same house during lockdown and continued to live together after lockdown was lifted because we generally get along, and we had a child, female 11, to raise together. Over the last 3 years, we've been roommates and co-parents, and that's it. One day, he was supposed to take our daughter to buy new school clothes, and she came back 10 minutes later in tears. She said they were on their way to the store when his new girlfriend called, and he drove her back home and dropped her off so he could go spend time with her. He even asked our daughter to lie to me for him, but she was tired of covering for him, implying she'd been lying to him for a while now. When he got home, we had a massive argument. I didn't care that he dated other girls. I cared that for some reason, he thought he had to sneak around, and it made him act like a jerk to me and our daughter. I told him if he had been a man about this new girl and just introduced me to her, then maybe we could have all been friends. But instead, he had to act like a horny teenager. It ended with him moving out to live with his parents. A couple days later, he called and apologized. He said he hoped it wasn't too late for him to do things right, and he hopes we can all be friends. I was hopeful that we could finally co-parent in peace for the sake of our child. This is where I may be the a-hole. I've always been close with my ex's parents, to the point where even after we broke up, I would be invited over regularly for dinner. They said even if I wasn't their son's partner, I'm still their grandchild's mother, and that makes me family. So one day, when my daughter texts me while at my ex's parents' house and invites me to dinner because they're having my favorite meal, I don't think twice about coming over, even though my ex and his girlfriend I've never met now live there. I figured everyone had to be okay with it, since my daughter was inviting me. I ended up having dinner with my ex's parents and daughter, but my ex only comes upstairs to grab 2 plates of food and goes back downstairs. I ask my ex's mom why, and she says his girlfriend doesn't feel well today. Whatever, I think. She's just sick, and I'll meet her another day. I have a perfectly pleasant dinner with my ex's in-laws, help clean up, and make a promise to bring them a coconut cake, ex-father-in-law's favorite, and take my daughter home. Later, my ex blows up my phone with texts and calls, saying it was so weird and rude that I came over for dinner uninvited, that I made his new girlfriend uncomfortable, and like she wasn't welcome there, and that I caused trouble in their relationship because she assumes we must still be in love for me to come over and see his parents out of the blue like that. Because exes don't do that. It's creepy. I had a talk with my daughter and asked her calmly if she had asked everyone else if it was okay if I come over before she texted me, and she sheepishly said she didn't know she had to ask since it had never been a problem before. I didn't tell her about her dad's meltdown at me, or tell her dad that she's the one who invited me. She's a child and shouldn't be involved. Instead, I just told him I'm sorry me dropping by made things awkward, but I thought he wanted us to all be friends from now on, and I figured this was a good place to start being friends. He said there was no way she'd want to be my friend now that I made her feel uncomfortable in her own home. It wasn't my intention to make anyone uncomfortable, but I admit I'd be perturbed if he brought this woman into my home and I had not even been warned first. So, am I the a-hole? The verdict ended up being not the a-hole. First of all, it's not her home, it's her boyfriend's parents' place, and you're not responsible for how a grown woman feels. So if she's feeling unwelcome or uncomfortable, she's doing that to herself. It sounds like your ex-in-laws and your daughter were perfectly fine with you being there. In fact, your ex's girlfriend seems to be the only one making it weird and trying to make a thing of it, therefore making the rift between you and your ex. Update. My daughter has gone no contact with her father and grandparents for the foreseeable future. September 1st, 2023. Hey y'all. I saw a post here recently about not getting a lot of updates to stories submitted to this blog yet and figured I could give mine, even though it's a sad one. I also maybe need to vent a little about the situation. Under the cut to save people's dashboards. From now on, ex's new girlfriend will be K. Ex-father-in-law will be FIL, and ex-mother-in-law will be mother-in-law. Don't worry, I'm still going to read them anyway. I'll start from the day after the dinner and try to give a concise recap of events. The day after the dinner, I bring father-in-law the coconut cake I promised, but not wanting to stir up trouble, I text that I'm bringing it over instead of dropping by unannounced, like I normally would. Father-in-law meets me on the porch instead of inviting me in like he normally would, and I gathered from his distant but polite tone and body language that he was basically shooing me away. I was hurt that a man who had always treated me like a daughter was being cold, but I didn't say anything about it, and I left. Over the next couple of weeks, my ex-in-laws continued to hold me at arm's length, where once I would consider them not only family, but close friends. I used to take mother-in-law to doctor's appointments and shopping trips, but texts asking her about her next appointment or inviting her to come shopping with me went unanswered. I used to go fishing and go-karting with father-in-law, but these invites also stopped. I had a sneaking suspicion my ex was behind the sudden change in my ex-in-laws, and I also started to notice a change in my daughter. Because my ex and I never actually married, there was no actual custody agreement between us. She would just text her dad if she wanted him to come pick her up, or text me if she wanted to come home. She's always been a daddy's girl and spent more time with him than she did home with me, and I was fine with that. But after the dinner, she spent a lot more time home with me, and one day she went with her dad only to call me within the hour, crying and asking me to pick her up. On the way home, I gently reminded her that she could talk to me about anything, even if it was hard. That adjusting to her dad having Kay in his life would be a challenge, but if she had any problems, she could tell me and I would help her fix them. And she told me what had transpired over my ex and Kay's relationship from her point of view. My ex and Kay had been dating for about 6 months before my daughter told me, and she pretty much knew about it from the beginning. My ex told her she couldn't tell me about it, and she agreed because she didn't want us to fight. My ex also had Kay around my daughter from the beginning, and my daughter was very wary of her at first, but started to like her. So the people saying I should meet Kay before she was around my daughter, that ship unfortunately sailed long ago. The day after the dinner, mother-in-law texted my daughter and basically said, "You're not in any trouble, but don't mention your mom around Kay again." My daughter texted back asking why, and she said, "It's just easier not to upset her." Kay started doing all the things with my ex-in-laws I used to do. She took mother-in-law to doctor's appointments. She took mother-in-law shopping. She went fishing with father-in-law and tried to replicate my coconut cake. My daughter tried talking to her dad and said it felt like Kay was trying to replace me. And my dad just said, "She's just being the daughter-in-law. Your mother-in-law isn't their daughter-in-law anymore." Still, my daughter-in-law is stubborn and insisted it wasn't fair that her mother was being excluded from the family. Her dad just kept repeating, "She's not family." To which my daughter yelled, "She's my mom. That makes her more family than Kay." At this, Kay apparently got up and left the room while my ex ran after her. Kay didn't just leave the room though. She took her keys and got in her car and drove away. My ex drove after her, and mother-in-law and father-in-law started scolding my daughter and saying she needed to apologize to Kay when she got back. That's when my daughter called me in tears and asked me to come pick her up. She's insistent that she doesn't want to go back over there until they all apologize to her, and I don't blame her. I'm honestly at a loss at all this. My ex never had a problem with me being close with his parents, even though we were broken up. Hell, I was the one who stayed with mother-in-law in the hospital for 4 months after she had a heart attack and subsequent heart surgery in 2021. I was the one who went to doctor's appointments and organized her medications and helped her with physical therapy. I was the one cooking meals every night and bringing them to father-in-law because both he and my ex have been spoiled rotten by mother-in-law and don't know how to cook for themselves. I was the one cleaning the house for them for over a year while mother-in-law recovered. I did it all because I loved them, not just as family to my child, but as dear friends. I don't know if the sudden change in behavior is how my ex felt all along, or if Kay had something to do with it, though I suspect it's a combination of both. My ex has weaponized incompetence down to an art form, and I suspect now that he has a replacement woman to take care of him and his aging parents, he no longer needs me to do it. But that's basically all that's happened over the last month. Radio silence for me from people I used to love dearly, and then pushing my daughter away till she ran home in tears. As sad as I am for me, my heart breaks tenfold for her. There's some additional comments from the OP. Thank you for your perspective. It's only been a couple of days since my daughter called me crying, and she's been distracting herself with school and friends, so I haven't really had time to sit her down and talk about how she's feeling about it all. All I've asked her is if she wants me to tell her if her dad tries calling, and she said yes. She wants to know if he tries to call. She had monthly online therapy sessions since her dad and I first broke up, but the first thing I did in light of this was contact her therapist and schedule her for an emergency in-person session soon. I've seen several people mention contacting a lawyer and getting a custody agreement set up, and I'm a little ashamed to admit it hadn't occurred to me to do that. My ex hates anything to do with the court proceedings. It's an almost irrational fear of this. He once had a panic attack over getting a jury duty letter, so part of me thinks he won't take this to court, but the other half of me knows that I don't even know this man anymore, and I'm absolutely not leaving anything to chance. I'll be looking into getting a lawyer as soon as possible, and see if we can get some sort of emergency custody order that says she doesn't have to go back there until the matter of split custody is decided. Here's another relevant comment from an anonymous user. Your mother-in-law sounds like a total enabler to her son's incompetence. I'm kind of wondering why you let your daughter be around that in the first place. The OP replies, oh, trust me, it was a point of contention. I was with my ex since high school, and she used to subtly try to tell me I should be preparing her baby boy like he deserves. But I think she eventually got the message that I wasn't someone who could just be pushed around. She hasn't tried to tell me how to run my household or raise my children in many, many years. My daughter is also super stubborn, just like me. She knows her grandmother has very traditional views on a woman's place in the home and thinks those ideas are stupid, and she'll tell mother-in-law such to her face. I've never seen mother-in-law try to guilt my daughter or make her feel lesser than for not agreeing with her, though. I used to think maybe mother-in-law was proud of how stubborn and willful my daughter was, and wish she would have been like that when she was young. Now I'm not entirely sure what's going on in her mind. Honestly, having something in place in terms of a custody agreement would be in your best interest at this point, since it sounds like things are going sideways. Not only that, but things seemed like they were fine between all of you until Kay was in the picture. Update. Kay stole from ex-in-laws and left. December 11th, 2023. I honestly did not think I would be updating this post any longer. In the last couple of months, I've gotten a lawyer and have been working out custody with my ex, which was rough at first, but then calmed down. I don't want to go into too many details because this situation doesn't really involve me anymore, just my ex, and he is still my daughter's father, so I'll give the short version. When my ex was contacted by my lawyer, he started blowing up my phone saying I was trying to take his daughter and all his money away from him, and how could I do this to him because he would never do this to me, etc., etc. I shut that down quick and told him I didn't want a dime from him. I just wanted some assurance that the agreement we already had in place, daughter stays with me but is free to visit him, stays in place. He kept trying to say lawyers were unnecessary because he wasn't going to try to take her. I stuck to my guns and he eventually caved. Meanwhile, I had my own things to sort through, and so did my daughter. It took a while to fully own the fact that I definitely contributed to the pain she is now feeling. When I broke up with my ex, I comforted her by telling her nothing would change. We were still living together. Then her dad moved out, and I still told her nothing will change. I'll still be active in father-in-law and mother-in-law's lives. I'll still go over there with you all the time. And while that was a nice thought, it didn't really prepare my daughter for the reality that families change all the time and change doesn't have to be bad or scary. This whole time she was basing her mental health on the idea that nothing about her family will change. So Kay's introduction slowly started to crumble away that feeling. But change is good. Change is normal. I may not like being cut off from father-in-law and mother-in-law, but they're not wrong when they say, I'm not family anymore. They're not wrong for trying to be welcoming to the new woman in their son's life. It sucks, but life goes on. Anyway, my daughter has been going over there for a few hours about once or twice a week, with lots of caveats that she, her dad, and I all agreed to. She gets to decide when she comes over. Her dad can invite her, but she's allowed to say no, and he can't argue. No one will force her to interact with father-in-law, mother-in-law, or Kay if she doesn't want to. No one will take her anywhere if she doesn't want to go. If anyone makes her uncomfortable, she'll leave and walk to Diane's house and call me to come pick her up. Diane is a coworker of mine who lives 3 blocks away and has known my daughter since she was a baby. This arrangement has been working out, and my daughter has said everyone has been extra nice to her, but they haven't actually said sorry for anything they did. She slowly started to seem happier and happier over there and asked if she could go to father-in-law's birthday party because her aunt and uncle from out of state would be visiting with her cousins, and I said yes. Well, tonight she came home and told me a doozy of a story. The party was great, everyone was having a good time, and my daughter's older cousin was showing her how to play the Nintendo 64. Kay was nowhere to be found. Apparently she didn't feel good again, and my ex went downstairs to check on her. Suddenly, they hear him screaming, "Where is it? What did you do with it?" Everyone got quiet and looked to the stairs where my ex stomped up and said everyone had to turn out their pockets because some money was missing from father-in-law and mother-in-law's safe. For some context, this safe is locked under the stairs and needs a key and combination to get into it. It has important documents for the whole family and emergency cash in it. Father-in-law, mother-in-law, my ex, and now Kay are the only ones who know the combination, and the only key is hidden in father-in-law and mother-in-law's room. My ex went downstairs to check on Kay, and she was asleep in bed, but the door to the cupboard under the stairs was open. he got a bad feeling and checked the safe, and about $2,000 was missing. He woke Kay up and she cried and said she had been asleep the whole time and someone must have come down and stole the money while she was sleeping. I was pretty gratified to hear that my ex's family are nowhere near as naive as he is, and immediately tore into him for believing that lie. None of them had a key or knew the combination, and all of them had been hanging out in the living room. Kay cleans father-in-law and mother-in-law's room all the time and knew where the key was. He told Kay the combination. Kay was downstairs the whole time. Kay is the only person who could have done it. He tried to defend Kay and told everyone to leave her alone. But father-in-law put his foot down and told his son to find the money or he would call the cops to do it. My ex went downstairs to talk to Kay, and everyone upstairs could hear her sobbing and calling him names. She went to get in her car and my ex followed her. And what did he see sitting on her back seat? A bag stuffed to the brim with money, a bag that wasn't there a few hours ago. My ex tried to stop Kay from leaving, but she tore out of the driveway like a bat out of hell. Father-in-law and mother-in-law are furious and want to press charges, and my ex is begging them not to, saying he can get her to bring it back. I don't know where this is going to go next, but honestly, I'm just kind of glad Kay and my ex didn't take me up on my original offer to be friends, because holy crap. Here's a quick relevant comment from an anonymous user. Ha! At your ex saying you're trying to get all his money and then his crappy girlfriend stealing from his parents. The OP replies, I wasn't going to say it, but that did strike me as humorous, yes. If he wasn't worried about money, he definitely has a reason to now. Seems like she was pretty sick, but not sick enough to stop stealing from her new family. Funny how people are so willing to discard someone they've known for so long, OP, and yet quick to defend people like Kay who have them turn on their own granddaughter overnight. What do you make of this? Would you have seen this coming? Do you have your own in-law drama? Share it with us in the comments below. Thanks for joining us today. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and click that notification bell before you leave. We'd love to hear your thoughts on today's topic, so feel free to leave a comment. See you next time in the rLounge.